All right, before we get started, I have just a couple housekeeping things. This webinar will last about an hour with questions and answers at the end. The a video will be used for the speakers only. Um, Questions can be submitted using the chat feature, or you can use your recorder or video at the end. We ask that you please identify yourself with your name, company, and also this webinar will be recorded and available on the MMA website under events, webinar series, and our YouTube channel. And we have Mike Huey here. He is, hold on, let me admit this person. Um, Mike Huey from Scalable Solutions has been in sales for over 30 years and has scalable companies for 15 years. He owns a consulting firm that helps manufacturing businesses owners around the country scale their business. He's also the author of a book, Make Your Company Scalable and Saleable, Essential Tactics for High Valuation Growth, Expansion Potential, and Exit Strategy Planning. So with that being said, we will turn it over to Mike, and we will see you at the end of the seminar.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, welcome everyone to this webinar on standing out in a crowded marketplace, strategies to win on more than price. I know you could be doing other things right now, so I give you my commitment. I'm going to do everything I can to make this a great return on the investment of your time and energy that we spend here for the next hour. You did hear just a little bit about me. I'm not going to pitch my book much, just give you a QR code once or twice at the end, and that's it. But nevertheless, we've been coaching for the last 4 years, fabrication companies, manufacturing, plastic injection molding companies around the country, scaling their sales systems, helping the business owners take off their sales hat and then really scale. The framework, you heard a little bit about the bio, but let me share one of the frameworks or experiences I had that really drove in the need to compete on more than price was when I scaled a company. A good friend owned a company that worked with chemical manufacturing stuff, and he had 2 accounts in the Minneapolis area, 7 employees. And he said, Mike, turn me into a national company. So I joined his company, and one of the offices we launched was our Washington, D.C. office, and we sold to facilities in the federal government. And so in the federal government, as you can tell, I don't know if any of you do sell to the federal government, but you always have to have 3 bids and all the stuff, right? And how do you compete on that? That was a large framework. We did that for probably 10 years before I left that company and started consulting. I applied a lot of the principles from that experience to help our other clients that are having to compete on different things. And so some of that's certainly in this presentation. You know, by the time we finished that company, we had half the Big Ten schools were our clients. I can't even watch a spy thriller anymore though, because because I see when they do the flyover of the city of DC, I can always spot out buildings that were our clients. You know, it's kind of a fun little thing. So, but that's where that is. So, we're going to get started with now some of the 5 ways to really help you compete on more than just price. The first thing that you need to understand is who your ideal client is. Who your ideal client is. Now, this is really simple. Now, here's the concept that I want to share with you is that a lot of times people will say, I already know that. And the question isn't whether you know that. You could know something by just reading a book or getting on Google or asking AI or whatever. The next question isn't whether you know it, it's whether you're doing it. And then the second thing is that in our culture, we really value highly complicated complex spreadsheets seem to have more value than simple spreadsheets. But let me tell you the framework from my background. I'm a former infantry officer, and we learned in the infantry that if we have complex orders, it's very difficult for our teams to execute. Whereas if we had simple to understand orders, now that doesn't mean simple to execute. We might be going against a force that's 3 times our size. But if the orders were simplified and we understood it and everybody across the organization knows what we're doing, it was much easier to execute. And so I've applied that in the businesses I've owned and in the coaching we do. So ideal client is simple to understand. However, most companies are not really pursuing it. So let me give you the 5 ways that you can identify who your ideal client is. The first one, which really is relevant towards money, is they see your value. And so if they actually see your value, what you're doing uniquely, or how your value really impacts them, then they're not negotiating on price. They're negotiating on the terms of the values that mean something to them. Third thing is that if an ideal client sees your value, they don't negotiate on price, and your team can fulfill it in their sleep. You're not doing these one-off orders and you're having to change machining or do anything like that. You know that, hey, they see my value. We're not negotiating on price. Our team can pop this out like there's no tomorrow. They're a repeat buyer, so you're not having to do it, one-off purchases. I was just talking with somebody who just became a client this week. He's got a business model, unfortunately, where every single order has to be a new order, and there's a new client, and it's just a really hard way to build business. But who is it that's buying from you repeatedly? And then lastly, they give referrals or testimonials to you so that you can use it in your marketing, or they're referring other things. That's the 5 things that identifies who an ideal client is. Now I want to open up to the mics for a second, and not Mike like Mike Huey, but the microphones, and ask, how would you find out who your ideal clients are in your business? All
I
right,
can go
go ahead.
quick. My name's Katie and I work with Midwest Manufacturers Association.
Yep.
So our ideal client is going to be people that want to grow their businesses located within the Midwest, manufacturing businesses. So that's kind of how we find our ideal clients.
Okay, great answer. I love that. How did you determine in the first place that that's who your ideal client is? That's what I'm trying to ask, because most of the people on this line, we're serving all kinds of people, and what's the criteria for us to be able to figure out, okay, who really is? So let me give an illustration. Going back to this company that I had working with that had the DC office, we sold this unique urethane coating that went on floors. We thought our ideal client was a hospital, because now instead, you've seen people waxing and buffing floors, and it's loud and it interrupts the flow. Our coating would go down. It was water-based, high traction, and they would not need any kind of maintenance on it for 3 years. So we loved going into hospitals because they were buying a lot from us. They were our biggest buyers. However, when we started doing research, we realized they were not, even though they were our biggest clients, they were not our ideal client. Our ideal client, we always were struggling to do fulfillment, because we'd get ready to go in and they'd say, oh, well, it's called census. Our census in the hospitals are full. We can't get into the rooms. You're going to have to come back another time and come back another time. And we started realizing that our ideal client was federal government or colleges, because we could get into those buildings at night all the time and fulfill it in our sleep. So we had to sit back and look at all of our clients, run through the criteria, and see that. So one of the things I want to encourage you to do is look at who are the 20% of your clients that make up 80% of your revenue. Number one, identify them. And then secondly, go back and ask them some things that we're going to be talking about later. But one is, why are you buying from us? Why did you buy? Why do you not go with competitors? Really hone in who that ideal client is. Because if you can start making most companies that we consult, I would say their ideal clients make up somewhere between 10 to maybe 18% of their total revenue. Very few people really just stick with their ideal client. But if you had 20% of your business is coming from your ideal client, and you can move that up to 30% is your ideal client, what's going to happen to your profit margin? All right, learning takes energy. How we do anything is almost how we do everything. So I'm going to ask you, what's going to happen to your margin if you can find people that are seeing your value, you're not negotiating on price, and you can fulfill it easily and quickly?
It'll increase your margin.
It's going to dramatically increase your margin, right, Andrew? I mean, you're going to go from, I mean, it's significant. So, nevertheless, your first thing is to find out who your ideal client is, and really sit back, study that, analyze it. Then go back and find out what your customers want. Now, I was referring in this slide to RFQs, but before you even go to the RFQ part, I encourage you to do what I said before. Once you find out your top 3 to 5 clients that you're like, man, I wish I could replicate these people over and over, I want to encourage you to have a regimented way of interviewing them and say, why did you first go with us? Why do you keep buying from us? What is the pain that we're relieving for you? And why is it you don't go with competitors? Why, and there's also some stuff you can start asking, but those are questions around helping you identify what they're wanting. So as an example, I'll stay on that same example of the hospitals. We thought that the people buying from us were buying from us because it was lower cost to maintain. We weren't interrupting, things like that. It was water based, and being environmentally friendly is a huge thing in hospitals. We thought that's why people were buying from us. But when we started interviewing our key buyers, we said, why is it you keep buying from us? And by probably 60 to 70% of them, number one answer was, you keep the second shift head nurse off of my back. She's always complaining about the floors. She's complaining about this, complaining about. We had no clue that that's the real reason why people were buying from us. So obviously we shifted all of our marketing and started. And when we shift to relieve that pain, how do you put a price on somebody getting off your back, right? That's not a price decision. So nevertheless, in most manufacturing, fabrication, plastic injection molding companies, things like that, a lot of business, in addition to direct sales, you're going to be answering RFQs, I would guess. And so in the RFQ, I want to encourage you to have a debrief time every time you either win an RFQ or lose an RFQ, and really sit down and find out, why is it we lost that one? What were the factors? Why did you decide to go with this? In the future, what could we do to get more a better consideration from you? And you'll start finding out, some of them might say you were just more expensive. Well, if somebody says you lost because you're more expensive, what does that say to you about that client?
Price is king.
Price is king, right? Thanks, Troy. There's Price Shopper. So there is a book called Disciplines of Market Leaders. It's back from the 90s. You can pick it up if you want. He talks about 3 different kinds of ways to dominate your market. One of those is operational excellence, which is pricing. So that's the Walmart model. That's the Amazon model. We're going to be the cheapest. And if that's your model, you want to be the cheapest and most efficient, you can dominate a market that way. But you're on this webinar probably because that's not the way you want to drive your business. You want to drive it with one of the other 2 routes, which is superior products or customer intimacy. So if you're losing because on price, it tells you at least they're probably, price is what's king, and that probably means they might not be your ideal client. I want to encourage you also to start utilizing AI in your RFQs. Put your RFQs together. Look at what you've won in the past. You can upload to AI different things like, here's the quotes we've won, here's the quotes we've lost. This is the current RFQ. How do you think we should propose this? Needs human oversight. That doesn't replace salespeople, doesn't replace all that. But I want to encourage you to utilize that. You can also put in your data as to why you're winning, why you're losing into AI, and keep that available so that the next time you have a RFQ, you've got some data. I also encourage you to keep that AI out of Chat GPT and put it in, there are sandbox AIs so that it just is your data. Nobody else has access to that. That's a real key thing. Otherwise, AIs pulling your data along with all these others, and now people have access to some of your stuff. So keep that sandbox tight around your AI, but certainly leverage it. Okay. But once you find out what your customers want, now you're able to start working better on positioning yourself on something other than price. You're finding out what the real issues, the real pains are. Secondly, or thirdly, have the strongest sales force. Now, I put a QR code here just in case you want to be able to connect with us, because this is our specialty area, is really scaling sales systems and processes and training the sales management and all of that stuff. So that QR code's there if you need it. Let me go into the how to have the strong, or what you're looking for in the strongest sales force. If you have two products, two manufacturers producing the same thing, one of our clients, as an example, he does bike racks for colleges all over the country. Okay, so these really ornate bike racks. He's not the only one. But if you have two of those, as an example, a bike rack company out of, I don't know, Georgia, and one out of California, and they're both trying to sell, if everything was the same, their capacity was the same, the bike racks were the same, they're probably getting raw materials from the same sources, distribution, supply chains, all the same. Whoever's got the strongest sales force is going to win the contracts. Okay, so the first thing to be to really move your sales force in is to be deeper in organizations than your competitors. Have things like large account sales planning tools and availability, so that you, as a owner, and your salespeople and your sales manager, really know how deep are we into these organizations, where's our weak points, who do we need to connect better with, who do we know but we really don't know what's their driving decision making criteria, things like that. Know all the players in your companies, and not just your current clients, but start identifying, now that we have who our ideal client is, here's 5 to 10 other companies. I'm just pulling that number out of the air depending on your size and what you're looking at. Here's 5 or 10 target companies that fit our ideal client. And now we're going to use our large account sales planning to start really getting into those organizations long before they have a need, long before they generate an RFQ. Okay, really have a sales force that knows people really well. Secondly, be first in. Have the longer history with those accounts. And if you can't, then try not to be just a file filler. I think all of us have probably experienced could you put a quote together? We've got this RFQ and the deadline's like in 2 days. And you're just way behind the wave of information that client has on other competitors. So it's really, really important to be first in. If you're first in, there's value there. And the other thing about that is you can start setting the terms of what that quote or that RFP is all about, and your team's really helping them do the discovery work. Oh, you want this, and this, but what about that? You don't have that in there. Now that happens to be something that you're really good in, but you're helping your sales force say, hey, you need to put that in the RFQ too, because if you don't have it, here's the consequences you're going to have, things like that. So make sure you're using that. Again, this is also a great area when you're setting terms, working with people, utilizing AI in your sales force. Here's an area that I noticed, the next area that a lot of companies do not do, and I'm shocked. In about a month, I fly to Cuba, and I'll be speaking in Cuba, communist country. If you've ever been in a communist country, has anybody ever, besides myself, been in communist countries before? Okay. I spoke to business owners in China. I spoke, that was certainly an experience. And now I'm going to Cuba to talk there. Communist countries. I remember going into East Germany the year after the wall fell down. And when you go into communist countries, it's like a time warp. Nothing has changed. When I went into East Germany in 1990, it was like uh, cars were still from the 40s or 50s. Now, China is not quite like that because I was in Shanghai and Beijing and Hong Kong. But if you get outside of those three major cities, it it's we they don't have innovation like capitalistic societies do. Since we live in a capitalistic society, what makes you different today, remember the ideal client is somebody who sees your value, right? Understands your differentiation. What makes you valuable and different today will not be a differentiator for you probably 2, 3, 4 years from now. And so, what most companies do that I see is they have a differentiator. Well, actually, most companies don't have a differentiator. The companies that do have a differentiator, it's their differentiator now. And what happens is they get leapfrogged either by new entrants into the market or somebody else figures out something. Very few have an active multi-year differentiation plan. And so when you're the one that's always innovating, and it does not have to be just product, it can be innovation on a variety of things. You're innovating on how to get clients, you're innovating on how to serve clients, you're innovating on communication with clients, you're innovating in technology, whatever that is. But when you're the one that's the innovator, now your value in the marketplace skyrockets. And so one of the things you can do is create a multi-year differentiation plan. And to do that, obviously we a SWOT analysis. I think everybody knows what a SWOT analysis is. It's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on your company. Look at that. Where are you positioned really well? And then start looking also at what the do a trend analysis. And AI is another great tool to help you with trend analysis. So if I'm selling to like we had a manufacturer client that sold into aerospace, I'm not just looking at the trends in my market, I'm looking at trends in other areas. If I'm a fabricator and I've got a government contract selling to the government to put up walls along the Texas border, what are some of the trends that I should be looking at? Anybody? All right. Let me help you out then. So most people, when they look at trends, they're looking at trends of their clients. But in some areas, you need to be looking at political trends, right? Because depends on where that is politically. You need to look at, if I'm a injection molding company and I've got plastics, plastics, one of the trends you have to be watching is the environmental trends and the political trends on polymers and what's going on there, and what do we need to do to ebb and flow and change and move and groove to be able to stay competitive in providing people, because there's some people that are doing that. If I sell machining parts to the automotive industry, I need to be watching trends in the industry. I need to be watching trends in politics around electric vehicles, all of that stuff. You need to be looking not just at your market, not just at your clients. Look at the trends that are relevant to you. I think you should also look at trends in technology. You should be looking at trends in your own internal team. What's our trends? Maybe we have a trend that as soon as something new happens, uh, we've got a bunch of people who are panicking with change. We don't handle change well. That's a trend that needs to have a differentiation path, because then when changes do happen, if you could turn that culture around and they're adopting quick, fast, and easy, that's a differentiator in the marketplace compared to your other people. So I just want to encourage you have a multi-year differentiation path. Okay. Next, the last area really on ways to be able to differentiate is on negotiation skills. Okay, so we've looked at a couple different areas. We've looked at ideal clients. We looked at having a stronger sales force. We looked at doing our research on wins and losses that we've had. We've looked at having a multi-year differentiation path that alone will help you be able to differentiate on things other than price. But nevertheless, I wanted to give you some negotiating areas on things other than price. Maybe it's just a checklist, and when you're looking at it, feel free to take this. One area that you could be negotiating on, just these are just a variety of different negotiation terms to give you some ideas, is lead times and delivery times. How valuable is it that, or sometimes in some of the negotiations we had with RFQs, um, we would have a competitor promise to deliver by a certain time, but they never delivered on time. So in their RFQ, they delivered on time, and we had to show the clients that they could absolutely count on us. I got to clear my throat just for a second. Hold on. And so, how good are you at delivering on time? Maybe you can deliver even faster than what they want. Whatever that is, lead times and delivery times are great ways to negotiate because in our culture, we are one of the fastest moving cultures. As I work with business owners around the world, we are a culture that values time and speed more than almost any other culture I'm aware of. So just kind of be aware that that's a high value in our marketplace. The second thing that I think you could negotiate on is obviously with terms. Can we do minimum order quantities, or is there room for exclusivity? If I'm going to provide this, do you want us also providing the same machining or manufacturing or fabrication services to your competitors? If not, we can do some exclusive stuff that we'll just promise to you. All kinds of different things like that. Exclusivity, minimum order quantity, or a couple of the terms you can come up with. Freight and shipping costs, that might be for your industry somewhere where you can negotiate it and say, hey, we'll either reduce our costs or make our freight and shipping not a profit center for us if we can get this order, as an example. And then last, and this is probably the most important out of all of the negotiation things, is sit down and say, how can we reduce the risk for our prospects and clients moving forward with us? Because most of the time, risk is more valuable, or risk removal is more valuable than saving a buck. When you, to use an example, probably all of us could understand, when you buy a car, I might want to get the cheapest car because I'm a price shopper, but my risk that that car is not going to work and it's going to break down, it goes much higher as the price goes down, supposedly. So, some of that is we want to know that that car, as an example, not just has warranties, but we've got agreements, we've got issues. How can I absolutely make my people that are buying from my manufacturing company or my fabrication company or injection molding or whatever industry you're in, how can we reduce the risk? Can we ensure that there's a less waste or less bad products in a batch than our competitors are because we have a better QA system? So those are just a couple of the things that I think you could negotiate on. 4 different areas. You could certainly take that to your sales team and start building on that list and make it more specific to you. I just want to recap before we open it up for Q&A. Here's the 5 things to really stand out in a crowded marketplace, other than just being the cheapest provider out there. Know your client, debrief with your clients, and debrief all of your RFQs or RFPs, and really get to know why we're winning and why we're losing so that you can get that intelligence in there to win more bids. Have the strongest sales force. And when I mean the strongest sales force, I do not mean you. I mean having a repeatable team with A players who are into the accounts first. They know they're deeper in the accounts than anybody else, and that you've got a repeatable sales process that you could just do this over and over. Have a multi-year differentiation plan so that you know exactly where the market's going, and you're going to be investing your money accurately so that you can continue to add more value to your clients than your competitors. And fifthly, really increase your negotiation skills and the negotiation skills of your team. Again, I want to thank you for this time. Here's the book, but I want to open it up for any Q&As, questions, or something that people would have. All right. Any questions at all? All right. Then the last thing that I'll conclude is if you'd like to talk to me, I'm happy to schedule a 10 to 15-minute phone call sometime. Help you answer. Again, what we do is we help business owners take off their sales hat, help them get repeatable sales processes, teams, the sales management, get all that in place. And then once we have a repeatable sales system, we help you either go one of two directions, which is the title of the book: either scale and get offices or locations all over the country, or buy all your competitors, or which we've done, or we're exit planning certified advisors. We can help the business get ready for a transition, whether that's to your kids or an ESOP or key management or a strategic buyer, whatever that is. So you can use that QR code to schedule a phone call with me if that's of interest. But that's it then. If there's no questions, I'll stay on as long as is needed.
All right, Mike. Well, we want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us. It's been very informative. So I'm watching the chat here. Does anyone have any questions, or we're good? Let's see. Not seeing anything yet. You must have been so thorough. There's no questions. So, all right. Well, we'll let you hang out here for a couple more minutes, and otherwise, I think everybody can head off for lunch.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks so
Have a
much.
great day, everyone. Talk
And
to you later.
also, yeah, and
Thank you.
I'll be posting this on YouTube soon. So if you need to share it, it will be available.
All right.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Recording. All right.